Maya Santos had dreamed of becoming a Marine since she was 8 years old. Sitting beside her mother as she showed her weathered medals from her time in the Corps, her mother, Gunnery Sergeant Olivia Santos, had been a combat medic during her 18-year career, and every evening before sleep, she would tell Maya powerful stories about battlefield courage and saving lives under fire. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. She would drift off to sleep, picturing herself in combat. Gear, medical kit at the ready, moving swiftly through dangerous terrain to reach those who needed help most. The dream never wavered. Throughout high school, Maya devoted herself to preparation. She maintained perfect grades in biology and anatomy, pushed her body through grueling training regimens, and studied field medicine textbooks until midnight. At Oceanside Marine Combat Training Center, she continued her exceptional performance. Her tactical knowledge was flawless, her medical response times record-breaking, and her understanding of battlefield medicine surpassed recruits who had been studying twice as long. The instructors whispered that she possessed natural intuition and the kind of calm under pressure that couldn't be taught. But on final assessment day, Maya stood at 5 feet 2 tall, 3 inches short of the minimum height requirement for frontline combat roles. Major Daniels, the evaluation board commander, delivered the verdict bluntly. He barely glanced up from his clipboard as he spoke. In combat scenarios, physical standards aren't optional, Santos. You're too small for the field. Physical requirements exist for practical reasons. Your size limitations could compromise mission effectiveness and team safety. Maya didn't break down. Her mother had taught her never to show defeat in front of people who had already decided your worth. Instead, she requested assignment as a support medic at the base. They agreed, probably out of respect for her mother's reputation, and assigned her to Medical Unit 4 under Chief Petty Officer Ramirez. Every morning at 0430 hours, Maya was the first person in the medical bay. She organized supplies, prepared emergency kits, and transported equipment across the base. She observed every combat training exercise from the sidelines, memorizing tactical movements and emergency protocols. The combat Marines barely registered her presence, just another medic in uniform, essential but invisible. But every evening after shifts ended, Maya drove to a remote training area 5 miles from base. She had quietly constructed her own physical training course with her savings, and she practiced carrying increasingly heavy weights until her muscles burned and her back ached from the strain. Her mother had taught her that determination was something no one could measure or take away, and she intended to be prepared for something significant, even if she didn't yet know what that something might be. The other medical staff occasionally made remarks about the girl who wanted combat duty. They weren't unkind, just matter of fact. Everyone understood the standards. Size requirements weren't negotiable. Maya kept working, kept observing, and kept training. She told herself that serving in any role was still honorable service. But during quiet nights, when the base fell silent and the Marines rested in their barracks, she would look at the distant hills where combat exercises took place and feel the familiar pain of an unfulfilled calling. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez had been stationed at Oceanside Marine Base for 17 years. He noticed details others overlooked. He noticed that Maya Santos spent her break time studying combat zone maps. He noticed that she collected discarded gear from training exercises and tested them for weight distribution. Most significantly, he noticed how she positioned herself during medical evacuations, always at the optimal location to quickly reach multiple points, always calculating movement patterns in her mind. One Tuesday morning, Ramirez approached Maya as she was restocking emergency field kits in the supply room. "Where did you learn trauma stabilization techniques that advanced?" he asked conversationally. Maya looked up surprised. "My mother taught me that time is everything. Whether you're treating wounds or moving casualties, you have to understand how seconds matter. Ramirez nodded thoughtfully. Your mother sounds like a remarkable woman. The base conducted informal physical readiness competitions every few months, primarily for morale boosting and identifying exceptional performers. Maya had never received an invitation, but she typically attended to support her medical unit colleagues who participated. This time, when Lance Corporal Jensen injured his ankle during preliminary events, Maya quietly suggested she could take his place. The skepticism was immediate. That pack weighs almost as much as you do, someone called out. You sure you can even lift it? Maya hoisted the 80-pound field kit without strain. She had been training with heavier weights for months. The equipment felt familiar against her back. The challenge required carrying the full kit across 800 meters of rough terrain with simulated obstacles and hazards, maintaining both speed and casualty care capability. Maya adjusted the straps, secured the load precisely as her mother had taught her, and controlled her breathing for maximum efficiency. The first checkpoint came at 200 meters. Maya passed it with perfect form. The second checkpoint required navigating a water hazard while keeping medical supplies dry. She completed it flawlessly. By the third checkpoint, the murmurs of doubt had completely ceased. By the fourth checkpoint, a significant crowd had gathered. Maya's final time was 7 minutes and 12 seconds, faster than any of the designated field medics on base. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez recorded her performance with his tablet. Santos's time exceeds 3 combat-qualified medics, he noted quietly. But the competition results were classified as informal training only. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. No official records were maintained. No reports were submitted. The following morning, Maya returned to her regular duties, and most personnel pretended the physical trial had never occurred, except Ramirez. He began leaving advanced field manuals where Maya would discover them. He started mentioning casualty extraction techniques when she was nearby. He never directly addressed what had happened, but he was preparing for something he couldn't yet identify. Maya absorbed every piece of information like a sponge. She studied extraction calculations during breaks, practiced breathing techniques during her evening runs, and continued her secret strength training sessions in the remote area beyond the base boundary. She still dreamed of frontline service, but she was beginning to understand that there might be other ways to save lives in combat zones. 4 weeks after the physical competition, Oceanside Marine Base received intelligence about increased hostility in their operational region. Additional defensive measures were implemented, more medical supplies were stockpiled, and training exercises became more intensive and frequent. The atmosphere on base transformed from routine operations to active preparation for potential deployment. Maya recognized the shift immediately. Marines who previously joked during equipment checks now maintained serious, determined expressions. Medical teams worked with heightened urgency. Communication became more coded and deliberate. Something critical was developing, though no one discussed it openly. During this period, Maya caught fragments of conversations not intended for her ears. Major Daniels had been in secured meetings with intelligence officers from Central Command. The base's medical evacuation procedures were being reviewed and practiced daily. Most revealing of all, the requests for battlefield medical supplies had doubled with particular emphasis on trauma treatment materials. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez continued his unofficial mentoring, but his lessons became more specific and pressing. He taught Maya about evacuation under fire, carrying wounded comrades over various terrains, and managing multiple casualties simultaneously. "Why are you teaching me all this?" Maya asked one evening as they reviewed extraction techniques. Ramirez looked at her seriously. "Because I've been watching you for months, Santos. You have something most trained evacuation specialists never developed the ability to calculate. optimal paths, and carry more than your body weight should allow. I have a feeling we're going to need that capability sooner than anyone anticipates." That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She stood by her quarters window, watching the training grounds where security patrols moved in careful formations. The entire base felt like a compressed spring, ready to release tremendous energy at any moment. Lieutenant Michael Torres, one of the younger officers, approached Maya the next morning while she was preparing medical kits for his platoon. He was barely 26, with thoughtful eyes and a respectful demeanor. He kept a photo of his young brother Diego, who had just started college, tucked inside his helmet beside his identification tags. "I heard about your performance in last month's competition," he said quietly. "That was impressive strength and endurance for someone your size." Maya continued her work without looking up. "Just good training, sir." Training doesn't enable someone to outperform combat veterans, unless there's exceptional natural ability involved, Torres replied. "That was remarkable capability, pure determination." As he walked away, Lieutenant Torres paused. "Keep preparing, Santos. Something tells me we're all going to need to perform beyond expectations very soon." Maya watched him leave, noting the tension in his movements, the way he repeatedly checked his equipment. Even the officers could sense it, the invisible pressure, building toward an inevitable confrontation. That evening, during her training session in the remote area, Maya pushed herself harder than ever before. She set up increasingly challenging obstacles and practiced carrying heavier weights over longer distances. Her mother's voice echoed in her thoughts. "Preparation isn't about what challenges you expect. It's about being ready for challenges you never imagined facing." The alert shattered the pre-dawn silence at 0430 hours. Maya jolted awake in her quarters, immediately alert. This wasn't an exercise. The alarm pattern was different, more urgent, more commanding. "All personnel to emergency stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Enemy forces had launched a surprise attack on a forward operating base where a Marine reconnaissance team had been gathering intelligence. The small team had been ambushed without warning, surrounded and cut off from evacuation routes. Radio communications were fragmented and alarming. Echo 3 is down. Fox 2 is critical. "We're pinned down with multiple casualties." Maya sprinted to the medical center, but disorder had already taken over. Emergency teams were scrambling to prepare evacuation resources, but the surprise attack had been too well coordinated. The casualties were trapped in an isolated canyon, unreachable by standard vehicles, with extraction helicopters grounded by hostile fire and dangerous terrain. Through the static-filled communications, one voice cut through clearly. "This is Lieutenant Torres. We have 3 critically wounded. I'm the only one mobile. Hostile forces approaching our position. Requesting immediate medical extraction. Anyone, please respond." Maya's heart raced. Lieutenant Torres, a young officer with his brother's photo, who always treated support personnel with genuine respect when she prepared his team's medical supplies. The base's standard evacuation vehicles couldn't navigate the narrow canyon paths. The command center reported that air support couldn't launch safely due to enemy anti-aircraft presence. Lieutenant Torres was alone, defending 3 wounded Marines, with limited ammunition and medical supplies, waiting for help that seemed impossible to provide. Maya ran to the emergency equipment locker. Her hands moved automatically to the specialized lightweight extraction kit, the same equipment that everyone had doubted she could carry effectively. She grabbed the medical pack and emergency supplies, then sprinted toward the command center. The only viable extraction route was through a narrow footpath in the canyon, 6 miles of treacherous terrain with minimal cover. Other personnel were too occupied with defense protocols to notice one medic, retrieving a tactical map and communication device. Maya reached the command center as Lieutenant Torres's voice crackled over the radio again. "Supplies running low. Casualties deteriorating. If anyone can hear this, tell my family I did everything possible. Maya studied the tactical map behind the communications equipment. She could see the canyon where Torres and 3 wounded Marines were trapped, surrounded by hostile forces that were gradually closing in. The extraction distance was approximately 12 miles round trip, farther than any standard evacuation procedure recommended for a single medic. She calculated terrain difficulties, enemy positions, and the weight of potential casualties. Her mother's voice resonated in her memory. Breathe steadily. Find your rhythm. The body can accomplish extraordinary things when lives depend on it. The wounded Marines had perhaps 2 hours before their conditions would become irreversible. Maya accessed the emergency supply locker, selecting the lightweight extraction gear she had been secretly training with for months. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez found her preparing the equipment. Instead of stopping her, he quickly added additional medical supplies to her kit. "The canyon narrows at these 3 points," he said, marking positions on her map. "Use the eastern approach. It's longer but provides better cover." Maya nodded, securing the final straps on her gear. "I can reach them in 50 minutes if I maintain maximum pace." Ramirez looked at her with concern and respect. "Command hasn't authorized this extraction. It's classified as too high risk for a single medic." Maya checked her communication device one last time. "Then it's fortunate I'm not just any medic." She slipped out through the secondary gate while command was focused on organizing larger rescue operations that would take hours to deploy. The canyon terrain was brutal, loose rocks, steep inclines, minimal cover from potential enemy fire. Maya moved with the speed and precision she had practiced for months, navigating passages that would have been challenging for someone twice her size. Her smaller frame actually became an advantage, allowing her to use cover that larger Marines couldn't access. She reached Lieutenant Torres's position in 47 minutes, approaching from an angle the enemy forces hadn't secured. Torres had created a makeshift defensive position behind fallen rocks, using his own body to shield the 3 wounded Marines. His eyes widened in disbelief when Maya appeared beside him. "Santos, how did you—" "Medical extraction, sir. We need to move these Marines immediately." She was already assessing the casualties. 2 had sustained serious but non-fatal injuries. The 3rd, Sergeant Rodriguez, had a critical chest wound that required immediate attention. Maya stabilized Rodriguez first, applying advanced field techniques that weren't standard protocol, but that her mother had taught her for extreme situations. "Sir, I need you to help me prepare these Marines for transport." Torres looked at the 3 wounded men, then back at Maya's small frame. "Santos, even our strongest evacuation specialist couldn't carry one of these Marines out of here, let alone 3. Maya was already securing the first Marine to the specialized extraction harness she had brought. "With respect, sir, I've been training to carry more than my body weight for months. I can manage one at a time with your covering fire." The nearest hostile forces were approximately 300 meters away, slowly advancing through the canyon. Maya would need to make 3 separate trips to evacuate all the wounded. Each journey would become progressively more dangerous as enemy forces closed in. She secured the first Marine, Corporal Jenkins, to the extraction harness and positioned him across her shoulders using the specialized technique she had practiced countless times. His 190-pound frame should have been impossible for someone her size to carry, but her months of dedicated training had prepared her body for exactly this moment. "I'll return for the others. Keep them stable." With that, Maya began the first extraction journey, moving with remarkable speed despite the weight across her shoulders. Lieutenant Torres watched in astonishment as her small figure disappeared into the canyon shadows. The path back was grueling. Maya's muscles screamed with each step, but she maintained the steady rhythm her mother had taught her. 50 minutes. Later, she delivered Corporal Jenkins to the forward medical team that had finally been established at the canyon entrance. Without pausing for rest, she immediately turned back for the second Marine. "Santos, you need recovery time," the forward base medic called after her. Maya was already disappearing back into the canyon. There isn't time. The second journey was more dangerous. Enemy forces had advanced closer to Torres's position, and Maya had to navigate more carefully to avoid detection. She reached Torres and the remaining casualties as sporadic gunfire echoed through the canyon. "They're getting closer," Torres reported, reloading his weapon. "Maybe 200 meters now." Maya was already securing Private Lewis to the extraction harness. His injuries were slightly less severe, but the 210-pound Marine represented an even greater weight challenge. "I'll draw their attention away from your extraction route," Torres said, checking his limited ammunition. Maya adjusted the harness straps, distributing Private Lewis's weight as effectively as possible. "Sir, I'll need you here to protect Sergeant Rodriguez until I return for the final extraction." Torres nodded grimly. "How are you doing this, Santos? This shouldn't be physically possible." Maya secured the final strap, her movements efficient despite her fatigue. Sometimes the impossible becomes possible when there's no alternative. "Sir, the second extraction journey was slower, more painful." Every muscle in Maya's body protested with each step, but she maintained her focus on the rhythm of movement, the next step, the next breath. Hostile fire occasionally echoed through the canyon, but she utilized the cover points Ramirez had identified. 70 minutes later, she delivered Private Lewis to the forward medical team. Her uniform was soaked with sweat, her breathing labored. But she turned immediately toward the canyon once more. This time, the forward base commander stepped in front of her. "Specialist Santos, we cannot authorize a third extraction attempt. Enemy forces have advanced too close to the position. We're organizing an armed response team." Maya checked her equipment with steady hands despite her exhaustion. "With respect, sir, that team will take another hour to assemble and deploy. Sergeant Rodriguez doesn't have an hour. This is beyond physical possibility, Santos. You've already carried 2 Marines twice your size through hostile territory." Maya secured fresh medical supplies to her kit. "Then one more impossible task won't make a difference, sir." Before anyone could stop her, she disappeared back into the canyon. The third journey was a nightmare of exhaustion and danger. Enemy forces had closed to within 100 meters of Torres's position. Gunfire was no longer sporadic but constant. Maya had to crawl through sections where cover was minimal, pushing beyond what her body should have been capable of enduring. When she finally reached Torres, she found him down to his last magazine, using precisely placed shots to keep the enemy at bay. Sergeant Rodriguez's condition had deteriorated significantly. "He needs immediate evacuation," Torres said, his voice tense with concern. "The extraction team is still 50 minutes out. He won't make it." Maya was already preparing Rodriguez for transport, her movements precise despite her extreme fatigue. Securing the 220-pound sergeant to her extraction harness, she felt a momentary doubt, her first since beginning the mission. Rodriguez was the heaviest of the 3 Marines, and she had already pushed her body beyond reasonable limits. "Santos," Torres said quietly, "if anyone can do this, it's you. I've never seen anyone with your determination." Maya adjusted the final straps, distributing Rodriguez's weight as evenly as possible. "Sir, you need to come with us this time. Your ammunition won't last until the extraction team arrives." Torres hesitated, clearly reluctant to leave his defensive position. "That's an order, Lieutenant. We move together." The final extraction journey was an exercise in pure will. Maya carried Sergeant Rodriguez while Lieutenant Torres provided covering fire when necessary. Her legs trembled with each step, her shoulders burned with pain, but she maintained the steady forward movement. When enemy fire came too close, Torres pulled Maya and Rodriguez behind cover, returning fire with precision until they could move again. The journey that should have taken 50 Minutes stretched to nearly 2 hours. Maya's vision narrowed to just the path ahead, her world reduced to the next step, the next breath, the precious life she carried on her shoulders. When they finally emerged from the canyon mouth, medical teams rushed forward to take Sergeant Rodriguez. Maya remained standing for precisely 3 seconds after they lifted the Marine from her shoulders. Then her legs finally gave out and she collapsed into the dust. She awoke in the base medical center 12 hours later. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez sat beside her bed, reviewing medical charts. "Welcome back, Santos. You've been busy rewriting what's physically possible." Maya tried to sit up, wincing at the protest from her muscles. "The Marines, are they?" "All 3 are stable," Ramirez assured her. Sergeant Rodriguez was the closest call. "The doctors say he wouldn't have survived another 30 minutes without treatment. You got him here with exactly 0 minutes to spare." Maya expected to face disciplinary action. Proceeding without direct orders, utilizing equipment without authorization, entering hostile territory without tactical support. She had violated at least 15 regulations in 6 hours. Instead, she was summoned to the commanding officer's office 3 days later. Major Daniel sat behind his desk with her personnel file open in front of him, the same file that contained her combat duty rejection. "Sit down, Santos." She sat with back straight, hands folded, prepared for whatever consequences awaited. "That was an extraordinary extraction mission," Major Daniel said quietly. 3 Marines, each weighing over 190 pounds, carried through enemy territory by a 5'2" medical specialist who was deemed too small for combat duty. Our tactical analysts reviewed the operation. They said it defied physical possibility. "Sir, I can explain my actions. No explanation required." "We were wrong, Santos, and you were right." The major signed a document and slid it across the desk. "Special qualification authorization. You're being assigned to advanced combat medical training, effective immediately. You'll maintain your current medical duties, but you'll also be training with our elite extraction teams." Maya stared at the paper, struggling to comprehend what she was reading. "Sir, I'm just a support medic. I'm not combat qualified. 3 days ago, you were just a support medic. Today, you're the person who saved 3 Marines and Lieutenant Torres when our standard protocol said it couldn't be done. Tomorrow, you'll be whatever this Corps needs you to be." The transfer was processed without fanfare. No public announcements. No formal ceremonies. Maya preferred this approach. She continued preparing medical supplies and maintained her evening training regimen. But now she also spent 4 hours each day training with Chief Petty Officer Ramirez and the base's specialized extraction team. Other personnel began treating her differently, not with skepticism or dismissal, but with genuine earned respect. Someone had retrieved her old combat rejection documentation from her personnel file and posted it in the medical center. But they had crossed out the words "too small" and written above them, "too valuable to limit." Lieutenant Torres visited her in the medical center 2 weeks later. "I wanted to thank you personally," he said. 3 families still have their Marines because of what you did. Including mine. Rodriguez is my brother-in-law." Maya nodded, uncomfortable with praise. "Just doing my duty, sir." "No," Torres said firmly. "You went far beyond duty. That's what makes the difference between someone who follows standards and someone who saves lives when standards fail." Her new designation appeared on the duty roster without ceremony. Carrier, the person who brings wounded home, even when conventional wisdom says it's impossible. Word of Maya's extraordinary extraction mission began spreading beyond Oceanside Marine Base. Military communication channels carried the story to other installations, and soon requests began arriving for Maya to participate in specialized training programs and cross-branch exercises. The same officers who had dismissed her due to height limitations now wanted to study her techniques and incorporate her methods into official training protocols. Major Daniels found himself fielding calls from Pentagon officials who wanted to know more about the medical specialist who had accomplished the impossible extraction. Each conversation reinforced what he was beginning to understand. Maya Santos represented something the military had been overlooking. Proof that the most valuable personnel didn't always match traditional physical profiles. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez observed Maya's transformation with quiet satisfaction. During one of their training sessions, he pulled her aside. "You know what's most important about what happened that day?" Maya looked at him curiously. "It wasn't that you carried 3 Marines who each outweighed you by over 100 pounds, Ramirez continued. "It's that you were ready when those Marines needed someone capable of the impossible. That's the difference between meeting standards and exceeding them when it matters most." As Maya's reputation grew, so did her responsibilities. She began participating in mission planning sessions, offering insights on medical extraction capabilities in challenging environments. Her unique combination of medical knowledge and exceptional physical strength made her invaluable for understanding how support specialists could integrate with combat operations. But the most significant change was internal. Maya no longer looked at the combat Marines with the ache of unfulfilled dreams. Instead, she saw them as part of a broader system that she was now essential to protecting and supporting when they needed it most. 8 months after the canyon incident, Maya received an unprecedented invitation. The Department of Defense was assembling a specialized review committee to examine physical requirements for various military positions. Her case had become a focal point in discussions about whether traditional standards were excluding uniquely qualified personnel. The hearing took place in a formal Pentagon briefing room. Maya sat at a polished table facing a panel of high-ranking officers, defense officials, and military strategists. Major Daniels accompanied her as a witness. General Eleanor Matthews, a distinguished woman with 32 years of service, led the questioning. Staff Sergeant Santos, your case has generated significant discussion about our recruitment and assignment standards. Some argue that exceptions indicate our standards need revision. Others maintain that physical requirements exist for essential operational reasons. What's your perspective? Maya had prepared for this moment, but addressing the panel still felt intimidating. She thought of her mother's advice about showing confidence in front of people who might have already formed their opinions. General, I believe physical standards serve crucial purposes. Height and weight requirements for frontline combat exist because tactical operations and equipment designs presume certain physical capabilities. I was appropriately excluded from standard combat roles. Several panel members exchanged surprised glances at her response. Maya continued. However, I also believe that rigid standards can prevent us from recognizing alternative capabilities. I couldn't meet traditional combat requirements, but I could carry wounded Marines to safety when conventional extraction methods weren't viable. The question isn't whether standards should be eliminated. It's whether we're innovative enough to identify the right roles for people who exceed expectations in unexpected ways. General Matthews leaned forward. Staff Sergeant, your extraction performance now exceeds our specialized teams. Your medical knowledge is exceptional. Your performance under extreme pressure has been documented and verified. If you could redesign the military's approach to personnel assignments, what would you change? I would establish pathways for specialized roles that don't currently exist, Maya replied. I would identify combinations of capabilities that traditional positions don't capture, and I would remember that the person who saves lives in a crisis is often the person no one expected could do the job. The panel deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, General Matthews stood to deliver their decision. Staff Sergeant Santos, this committee recommends the creation of a new military occupational specialty, Combat Extraction Specialist. This position will combine medical expertise, physical conditioning methods, and tactical extraction procedures. You will be the first person assigned to this role with the responsibility of developing training methodologies and operational guidelines. Maya felt the room shift around her. She was no longer the medic who was too small for combat. She was the architect of a new way of serving. Furthermore, General Matthews continued, your case will be used to establish the Santos Protocol, a framework for identifying personnel whose unique capabilities create operational advantages that traditional standards might overlook. The flight back to Oceanside was quiet, with Maya processing the implications of what had just happened. Major Daniels broke the silence as they approached the base. You've started something significant, Santos. The committee is already reviewing cases of other service members who might have unique capabilities we've been overlooking. I didn't set out to change policy, sir. I just wanted to help. The most important changes often start that way, Major Daniels replied. Someone does what needs to be done, even when the system says it's impossible. Upon returning to base, Maya found herself facing a new challenge. She had been tasked with developing a training program for future combat extraction specialists. But there was no existing framework to follow. She would need to create everything from scratch: physical conditioning methods, tactical approaches, equipment modifications. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez offered his office as a planning space. You'll need somewhere quiet to think through this, he said, clearing reference materials from his shelves. This is uncharted territory. Maya spent weeks analyzing her own techniques, breaking down what had made the impossible extraction possible. It wasn't simply about strength. There were specific movement patterns, weight distribution methods, and breathing techniques that allowed her to carry weights that should have been beyond her capacity. She worked with equipment specialists to modify standard extraction gear for maximum efficiency. The current harnesses waste energy, she explained, sketching alternative designs. We need systems that work with different body types, not against them. Lieutenant Torres, now promoted to captain, frequently visited her makeshift office, offering tactical insights from a combat officer's perspective. The extraction itself is only part of the equation, he noted, reviewing her training outlines. You also need to teach threat assessment and route selection under pressure. Maya absorbed every suggestion, incorporating diverse perspectives into her developing program. She tested each component herself, refining methods through practical application rather than theoretical approaches. When something didn't work, she adjusted and tried again, never assuming that conventional wisdom was the final answer. Word of the new specialty spread throughout the military community. Inquiries began arriving from other branches: Army, Air Force, even Coast Guard and Special Operations units wanted to understand how someone Maya's size could accomplish what conventional extraction teams couldn't. Major Daniels found himself explaining the Santos Protocol to increasingly senior officials. It's not about lowering standards, he emphasized during one video conference with Pentagon leadership. It's about recognizing that different physical profiles can offer unique operational advantages in specific scenarios. The first test of Maya's new program came sooner than expected. 3 months into development, Oceanside received a request for training assistance from Mountain Warfare Training Center in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Their extraction teams were struggling with evacuations from extremely narrow cave systems where larger personnel couldn't effectively maneuver. They're specifically requesting you, Major Daniels informed Maya, handing her the assignment details. Apparently word of your canyon extraction has made quite an impression. The Mountain Warfare Center presented challenges entirely different from the canyon operation. Extraction specialists needed to navigate confined spaces while maintaining the strength to carry casualties through difficult terrain. The standard teams, composed primarily of Marines, selected for their size and strength, were struggling with the contradictory requirements. Captain Neil Harrison, the Mountain Center's training commander, greeted Maya with barely concealed skepticism. Staff Sergeant Santos, your reputation precedes you, though I admit I expected someone larger, Maya had grown accustomed to such reactions. Size has advantages and disadvantages, Captain. I'm here to help identify which of your personnel might have the right combination of attributes for confined space extractions. My teams are all qualified extraction specialists. They've been selected based on proven physical capabilities. Maya nodded respectfully. I don't doubt their qualifications, sir. But cave extractions require specific capabilities that might not align with standard selection criteria. Captain Harrison crossed his arms. You have 1 week to demonstrate your methods, Staff Sergeant. If you can show measurable improvements in our extraction times, I'll consider implementing your recommendations. Maya began by observing the current teams during training exercises. They were undeniably capable, strong, well-trained, and committed. But watching them struggle through the narrow cave passages, she identified the fundamental problem. They were trying to apply open-terrain extraction techniques in environments that demanded entirely different approaches. Your teams are working against their physical profiles, she explained to Captain Harrison after the first day. They're trying to move through spaces too small for their frames while carrying casualties in traditional positions. These are our best extraction specialists, Harrison replied defensively. They can carry more weight than anyone else in the unit. In open terrain, yes, Maya agreed. But in these cave systems, different capabilities become more valuable: flexibility, compact movement patterns, alternative carrying techniques. Maya requested permission to work with the extraction teams directly. Rather than asking them to completely change their methods, she introduced modifications based on her canyon experience. Instead of fighting against the environment, we need to adapt to it, she explained, demonstrating alternative carrying positions. She worked with each team member individually, identifying their specific strengths and helping them develop personalized approaches. There's no single correct method, she emphasized. The key is finding the technique that works best with your particular physical profile. By the 4th day, extraction times were showing modest improvements, but Maya wasn't satisfied. During an evening review session with Captain Harrison, she proposed a more radical approach. Sir, I'd like to incorporate some of your smaller personnel into tomorrow's exercise, specifically those who have been excluded from extraction teams due to size limitations. Harrison's skepticism returned immediately. Staff Sergeant, there are minimum size requirements for extraction specialists for good reasons. The physical demands are different in confined spaces, Maya finished. With respect, sir, I'm not suggesting we replace your current teams. I'm proposing we complement them with specialists selected specifically for restricted environment operations. After considerable discussion, Harrison reluctantly agreed to allow 4 smaller Marines to participate in the next day's training. Maya spent the evening working with them, teaching the specialized techniques she had developed during her months of secret training. Your size isn't a limitation here, she told them as they practiced in the equipment room. It's potentially your greatest advantage. You can move through spaces the larger specialists can't navigate effectively. The following morning's exercise produced dramatic results. The specialized team completed the cave extraction in 17 minutes, nearly half the time of the standard teams. Captain Harrison watched in astonishment as Marines who had been deemed too small for extraction duty carried casualties through passages that had stymied their larger counterparts. How is this possible? He asked as the teams emerged from the training course. Maya pointed to the smaller Marines who were already preparing for another practice run. They're not fighting against the environment, sir. They're working with it. Their center of gravity is lower, they require less space to maneuver, and they're using carrying techniques specifically designed for their body types. By the end of the week, Captain Harrison had completely revised his position. The Santos protocol clearly has merit in these specific operational environments, he acknowledged during the final briefing. I'm recommending immediate implementation for our confined space extraction teams. More significantly, he had identified 12 Marines previously excluded from combat roles who demonstrated exceptional potential as specialized extraction specialists. "We've been overlooking valuable capabilities," he admitted. "Personnel we classified as too small for standard operations may actually be ideally suited for these specialized roles." Maya returned to Oceanside with valuable field experience and practical refinements to her training program. The Mountain Center success provided concrete evidence that the Santos protocol could transform military operations beyond theoretical discussions. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez greeted her return with quiet pride. "Word of your mountain training has already spread," he informed her. 3 more specialized training facilities have requested your assistance." Maya set to work incorporating the mountain lessons into her developing program. What had begun as a response to her own exclusion was evolving into something much more significant, a fundamental reconsideration of how the military evaluated and deployed personnel. Major Daniels called her to his office a week after her return. "The Pentagon is accelerating implementation of the Santos Protocol," he informed her. "They want to establish a dedicated training facility focused specifically on developing specialized extraction capabilities." Maya looked up from the proposal documents in surprise. "Sir, we're still refining the basic methodologies. We need more field testing before full-scale implementation." "Sometimes the military moves faster than we expect," Daniels replied, "especially when operational advantages become clear." The mountain success demonstrated that this isn't just theoretical. It's a tactical capability we've been missing. The proposed training facility would be established at Oceanside, with Maya serving as chief instructor and program developer. She would have authority to select candidates based on the developing Santos protocol criteria rather than traditional standards. "This is happening because you refuse to accept arbitrary limitations," Daniels noted. "You've created opportunities, not just for yourself, but for countless others who might have been overlooked." Maya thought about the smaller Marines at the Mountain Center who had discovered capabilities they never knew they possessed. "That's the real purpose of the protocol," she said quietly. "Not just creating new specialists, but recognizing potential. That was always there." As planning for the training facility progressed, Maya continued refining her methods through practical application. She worked directly with medical teams to improve field treatment techniques that could be integrated with specialized extraction procedures. Captain Torres frequently joined these sessions, offering combat perspective and tactical insights. During one evening training exercise, he watched Maya demonstrating an extraction technique to a group of medical personnel. "You know what impresses me most?" he commented afterward. "Not just that you can do things others can't, but that you can teach others to exceed their perceived limitations." "That's the heart of the protocol," Maya replied. "Understanding that capabilities aren't always visible until we create opportunities to demonstrate them." The training facility construction began 3 weeks later. What had started as Maya's makeshift office in Chief Petty Officer Ramirez's spare room was evolving into a dedicated complex with specialized equipment, training courses, and simulation environments. Maya worked closely with the design team, ensuring that the facility would support multiple training scenarios, everything from the canyon conditions she had navigated to the mountain caves and other challenging environments requiring specialized extraction capabilities. "We need to prepare for conditions we haven't encountered yet," she insisted during planning meetings. "The next extraction challenge won't necessarily resemble the last one." As construction progressed, Maya continued developing selection criteria for the program's first official candidates. Rather than focusing exclusively on traditional physical measurements, she created assessment methods that identified unique capabilities, proportional strength, spatial awareness, problem-solving under pressure. "We're not looking for people who meet conventional standards," she explained to the selection committee. We're identifying those with exceptional capabilities in specific areas, even if they don't match traditional profiles. The first candidate evaluation session drew over 100 volunteers from various military branches. Many were personnel who, like Maya, had been excluded from combat roles due to physical measurements. Others were experienced extraction specialists interested in developing specialized skills. Maya watched them move through the preliminary assessment course, noting qualities that wouldn't appear in standard evaluations, how they adapted to unexpected obstacles, their capacity to develop alternative solutions when standard approaches failed, their ability to maintain performance under increasing pressure. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, now assigned as the program's senior advisor, stood beside her during the evaluations. "You've created something remarkable here," he observed. "Not just a new military specialty, but a new way of recognizing human potential." "I had good teachers," Maya replied, thinking of her mother's lessons about determination and Ramirez's quiet mentoring during those early days when no one else recognized her capabilities. By the end of the evaluation week, Maya had identified 30 candidates for the program's first official training cohort. Their physical profiles varied significantly from traditional combat personnel, but each demonstrated exceptional potential for specialized extraction operations. During the orientation briefing, Maya addressed the selected candidates with quiet conviction. "Many of you have been told that you don't meet standard requirements for combat roles, that your size, your proportions, or your physical profile made you unsuitable for certain duties." She looked across the room, seeing determination in their expressions, the same determination that had driven her through the canyon carrying Marines that conventional wisdom said she couldn't possibly carry. This program exists because those standards, while valuable in many contexts, failed to recognize unique capabilities that prove essential in specific situations. You're here not despite your differences from traditional profiles, but because of the exceptional capabilities those differences may provide. One candidate raised her hand hesitantly. "Staff Sergeant, most of us have spent our careers being told what we can't do because of our size. How do we shift from that mindset?" Maya understood the question intimately. By focusing not on what others believe is impossible, but on developing capabilities that make the impossible achievable. The next time someone tells you that you're too small for something important, your performance will be the only answer you need. The training facility, now officially designated as the Specialized Extraction and Rescue Center, was completed 3 months after groundbreaking. The complex featured environments that simulated every challenging extraction scenario. The military had encountered confined caves, narrow canyons, collapsed structures, and dense urban settings where conventional teams struggled to operate effectively. On dedication day, Maya stood beside Major Daniels as military officials toured the facility. General Matthews had flown in specifically for the ceremony, bringing with her several Pentagon observers interested in expanding the Santos protocol to other military specialties. Staff Sergeant Santos has created more than just a training program, Major Daniels explained as they observed candidates navigating the confined space course. She's developed a completely new paradigm for special operations extraction. General Matthews watched as a 5'3" Marine carried a 200-pound dummy through an opening barely large enough for a single person. Remarkable. Traditional extraction. Teams couldn't operate in that environment at all. That's the fundamental insight of the Santos Protocol, Maya explained. In certain environments, what we previously considered physical limitations can actually provide significant tactical advantages. The training program officially launched the following week, with 30 candidates beginning intensive instruction in specialized extraction techniques. Maya personally led many of the sessions, demonstrating methods she had developed during her own training and refined through field experience. Standard extraction techniques are designed for open terrain and conventional operations, she explained during the first tactical briefing. But approximately 40% of combat casualties occur in environments where those techniques aren't optimal confined. Spaces, restricted terrain, complex structures. The candidates absorbed every detail, many of them experiencing for the first time the revelation that their physical profiles, previously considered limitations, could provide unique operational advantages. Maya worked with each candidate individually, helping them discover their specific capabilities and develop personalized techniques. There's no single correct approach, she emphasized repeatedly. The key is understanding your particular strengths and adapting methods to maximize those advantages. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez supervised the medical integration components, ensuring that extraction techniques incorporated proper casualty care throughout the process. Speed is essential, he instructed, but maintaining casualty stability during extraction is equally critical. The training regimen was intensely demanding. Candidates spent 8 hours daily in physical conditioning and technique development, followed by tactical simulations and scenario-based training. The washout rate was initially high, with nearly 20% of candidates unable to meet the specialized performance standards. This isn't about conventional strength, Maya reminded the remaining candidates after a particularly grueling week. It's about specialized capabilities, creative problem-solving, and absolute determination. Many of you have spent your careers being told what you can't do because of your size. Now you're discovering what you can do that others can't. As the program progressed, the candidates' capabilities evolved beyond even Maya's expectations. They developed innovations she hadn't anticipated, adapting her core techniques to their individual strengths and creating specialized approaches for specific scenarios. Corporal Jessica Chen, a 5'0" Marine who had previously been restricted to administrative roles due to height requirements, emerged as an exceptional talent in ultra-confined extractions. She could navigate spaces too restricted for even Maya to access effectively. "I never imagined I'd have a combat-related specialty," Chen confided during an evening training review. "I spent 4 years being told I was too small to make a difference." In the field, Maya recognized her own journey in Chen's experience. The military is gradually learning that different physical profiles create different capabilities. Your size isn't a limitation in the right operational context. It's your greatest tactical advantage. By the 5th week of training, the program had attracted attention beyond military circles. A congressional delegation visited the facility, observing candidates performing extraction exercises that conventional teams couldn't accomplish. The political implications of the Santos Protocol, questioning long-established physical standards and suggesting that military capability assessments needed fundamental revision, were becoming increasingly apparent. Senator Catherine Morrison, chair of the Armed Services Committee, spoke with Maya privately after the demonstration. "Staff Sergeant, your program challenges decades of military personnel doctrine. That's making some people in Washington very uncomfortable." Maya maintained her professional composure. "With respect, Senator, the Santos Protocol isn't about challenging doctrine for its own sake. It's about recognizing capabilities that current doctrine overlooks and developing those capabilities to save lives in situations where traditional approaches fail." "I understand that," Senator Morrison replied. "But institutionally, the military doesn't embrace change easily, especially change that suggests previous approaches might have been fundamentally incomplete." Maya considered this perspective carefully. The protocol doesn't argue that traditional standards are wrong, just that they're incomplete. Different operational environments require different capabilities. We're not replacing conventional teams, we're complementing them with specialists who can operate where they can't. The senator nodded thoughtfully. "That's a nuanced position that might help navigate the political challenges. This isn't about lowering standards, it's about recognizing different standards for different operational contexts. As the first training cohort neared completion of the 8-week program, Maya began receiving requests from active deployment units interested in integrating newly qualified specialists into their operations. Forward bases in particularly. Challenging environments were especially eager to incorporate personnel trained under the Santos Protocol. Major Daniels brought the deployment request to Maya's office, where she was reviewing candidate performance assessments. "Your specialists are in high demand," he noted, placing the file on her desk, "particularly from units operating in complex, urban environments and restricted terrain." Maya reviewed the request with mixed emotions. While professional satisfaction came from seeing the program's rapid acceptance, she felt personal concern for the candidates preparing for their first deployments. These were Marines she had trained personally, many of whom had previously been told they couldn't serve in combat-adjacent roles. "They're ready," Ramirez assured her, noting her expression as she reviewed the files. "You've prepared them more thoroughly than any conventional training program could have." The graduation ceremony for the first Santos Protocol cohort was deliberately low-key, a brief formation, the presentation of specialized qualification insignia, and immediate processing for deployment assignments. 24 specialists completed the program successfully, each demonstrating capabilities that redefined what was possible in extraction operations. Maya addressed them one final time before they dispersed to their assignments. "When you report to your units, you'll likely face skepticism. There will be those who question your capabilities based on traditional standards and expectations." She looked at each specialist individually, seeing in them the determination and purpose that had driven her through her own journey. "Performance will be the only answer you need to provide. You're not just carrying forward new techniques, you're demonstrating a new understanding of human capability." As the specialists departed for their assignments, Maya turned her attention to selecting candidates for the second training cohort. The program's initial success had generated increased interest, with over 300 applications for the 40 available positions. "We need to refine our selection criteria," she told Ramirez as they reviewed the applications. The first cohort provided valuable insights about indicators of success in the program. They identified patterns among the most successful candidates, not just physical measurements, but adaptability, problem-solving approaches, and psychological resilience. These became core components of the revised selection process, emphasizing capabilities that conventional assessments often overlooked. 2 months after the first cohort's deployment, Maya received an urgent communication from a forward operating base in a mountainous region known for its complex cave systems and narrow canyons. A Marine reconnaissance team had been caught in a surprise attack, with 3 wounded personnel trapped in a cave network too confined for conventional extraction. The message came directly from Captain Elena Rodriguez, commanding officer of the forward base. "We have 2 of your specialists assigned to our unit. They believe extraction is possible, but request direct consultation with Staff Sergeant Santos regarding approach." Maya immediately established video communication with the forward base. Specialist Chun appeared on the screen, already dressed in extraction gear. "Staff Sergeant, we have 3 casualties trapped approximately 600 meters into the cave system. The passage is narrow to less than 18 inches in 2 sections. Conventional teams have attempted access without success." Maya studied the cave schematics that Chun transmitted. "What's your assessment, specialist?" "Extraction is possible, but will require modified techniques for the narrowest sections. We'll need to reconfigure the harness systems for the specific passage dimensions." Chun's confidence was evident despite the challenging circumstances. "With your guidance, we can adapt the methods you developed for similar scenarios." For the next hour, Maya worked remotely with Chun and Specialist Ramirez, no relation to the Chief Petty Officer, helping them modify equipment and develop a specialized approach for the unique cave configuration. The extraction would require navigating passages that conventional wisdom deemed impossible for casualty transport. "Remember your training," Maya emphasized as they prepared to begin the May operation. "This isn't about brute strength, it's about technique, weight distribution, and maintaining your extraction rhythm regardless of the environment." The forward base established a continuous communication link so Maya could provide real-time guidance throughout the operation. She watched through helmet cameras as Chun and Ramirez entered the cave system, navigating passages that seemed impossibly small for casualty extraction. Senator Morrison, who had initially expressed concern about the political implications of challenging traditional standards, nodded in agreement. "You've changed the conversation from lowering standards to recognizing different capabilities for different operational contexts. That's a profound shift in how we think about military readiness." The facility tour concluded at a memorial wall dedicated to service members saved through specialized extraction operations. The wall displayed photographs of Marines, soldiers, and special operations personnel who had been successfully extracted from environments where conventional approaches couldn't have reached them. 78 lives saved in the first year of deployment, General Matthews noted, studying the photographs. "Each representing a capability we didn't recognize until you demonstrated what was possible." Maya stood before the wall, thinking about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the devastating rejection based on height requirements to developing the capability that was transforming military operations worldwide. She thought about Private Martinez and the other Marines who now had opportunities to serve in roles previously close to them. About the wounded service members who had been safely extracted from environments conventional teams couldn't access. About the fundamental shift in how the military evaluated human capability and potential. "You've created a legacy that extends far beyond extraction operations," General Matthews said quietly. "You've demonstrated that excellence doesn't always fit within traditional parameters, and that recognizing unique capabilities creates operational advantages we previously couldn't imagine." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "My mother always told me that limitations often reveal capabilities we didn't know we possessed. Sometimes the very thing that seems like a disadvantage becomes your greatest strength when placed in the right context." As the visitors continued toward the ceremony location, Maya remained briefly beside the memorial wall. She studied the faces of the Marines whose lives had been saved through capabilities that conventional standards had initially failed to recognize. She had been deemed too small for combat roles, excluded from the service she had trained her entire life to provide. Instead, she had created a new understanding of service, a new recognition of capability, and a new path for others who might otherwise have been overlooked. The Santos Protocol wasn't just about specialized extraction techniques or modified equipment designs. It represented a fundamental reconsideration of human capability, the recognition that excellence takes many forms, and that the most valuable contributions often come from those who don't fit conventional expectations. 2 years after the establishment of the Santos Protocol, Maya found herself standing on a stage at the Naval War College, addressing senior military leadership from all service branches. The protocol had evolved from a specialized extraction program into a comprehensive approach for identifying and developing unique capabilities throughout military operations. "Traditional standards serve important purposes," Maya explained, displaying tactical performance data from recent deployments. "But they're designed to identify general capabilities for conventional operations. The Santos Protocol recognizes that specialized operations require specialized capabilities that may not align with conventional metrics." The audience included generals and admirals who had initially resisted changes to long-established physical standards. Now they were seeing operational data that clearly demonstrated the protocol's effectiveness in actual combat situations. In the past 24 months, specialists selected and trained under the protocol have successfully completed 143 extractions in environments where conventional teams couldn't operate effectively. Maya continued. These operations saved 211 service members who would otherwise have been unreachable. Admiral James Harrington, Chief of Naval Operations, raised his hand during the question period. Gunnery Sergeant Santos, how do you respond to concerns that implementing the protocol more broadly might compromise overall force readiness by modifying established standards? Maya had anticipated this question. It represented the most persistent institutional resistance to the protocol's expansion. Admiral, the protocol doesn't replace conventional standards, it complements them by identifying specialized capabilities for specific operational contexts. Traditional standards remain essential for general combat roles. The protocol simply ensures we don't overlook unique capabilities that prove decisive in specialized scenarios. Admiral Harrington nodded thoughtfully. So you're not arguing for abandoning height and weight requirements for general infantry or conventional combat roles? No, sir, Maya replied. Those standards exist for valid operational reasons. The protocol recognizes that different operational environments require different capabilities. We're creating specialized pathways for personnel whose unique physical profiles provide advantages in specific contexts, not suggesting that all standards should be universally modified. This nuanced position had proven effective in navigating institutional resistance. By acknowledging the validity of traditional standards while demonstrating the operational advantages of specialized capabilities, the protocol had gained acceptance even among initially skeptical leadership. After the presentation, General Matthews approached Maya. "You've become quite the diplomat," she observed with a smile. That was a masterful response to Admiral Harrington's concerns. Maya shrugged slightly. "It's not diplomacy, General, it's simply the truth. The protocol was never about rejecting traditional standards. It's about recognizing capabilities those standards might miss." "Well, your approach is working," Matthews replied. "The Joint Chiefs have approved implementation of the protocol across all Special Operations units, with further expansion into conventional forces beginning next quarter." The protocol's success had created new challenges and opportunities. Military branches beyond the Marines were developing their own specialized training facilities, adapting the core methodology to their specific operational requirements. Maya now served as chief consultant for these expansion efforts, helping each service branch identify and develop unique capabilities based on their particular operational contexts. The Army's implementation focused on confined space operations. In urban environments, where smaller personnel could navigate restricted access points that conventional soldiers couldn't effectively utilize, the Air Force adapted the protocol to identify specialized capabilities for aircraft maintenance in confined spaces and emergency extractions from damaged aircraft. The Navy developed applications for submarine operations and maritime rescue scenarios involving restricted compartments. Each implementation maintained the protocol's fundamental insight. Different physical profiles offered different operational advantages in different contexts. The key was matching personnel with roles that maximized their unique capabilities rather than evaluating everyone against a single standardized profile. Maya worked closely with each service branch, helping them develop specialized assessment methods and training approaches aligned with their particular requirements. The process often involved challenging entrenched assumptions about capability and performance, institutional resistance that required both data-driven arguments and compelling operational demonstrations. During a consultation visit to an Army Special Forces training facility, Maya observed as candidates navigated a complex urban environment simulation. The traditional Special Forces selection process had emphasized size and strength, but the protocol implementation was identifying candidates with specialized capabilities for restricted environment operations. Colonel Robert Jackson, the facility commander, watched with evident skepticism as smaller candidates successfully completed extraction scenarios that had challenged larger operators. "I've been in Special Forces for 20 years, he commented. To Maya, "Our selection standards have always emphasized physical size as a key operational requirement. For conventional operations, that emphasis makes sense," Maya acknowledged. "But urban environments create scenarios where traditional physical profiles can actually become operational limitations. The question isn't whether you're conventional. Standards are wrong. It's whether they're capturing all the capabilities you need for diverse operational contexts." The colonel continued observing as the candidates completed increasingly challenging scenarios. "I'm seeing the performance data," he admitted reluctantly. "But this represents a fundamental shift in how we've always evaluated operator capability." Maya understood his perspective. She had encountered similar resistance throughout the protocol's implementation process. "Sir, the most effective special operations teams have always recognized the value of diverse capabilities. The protocol simply provides a systematic approach for identifying and developing capabilities that traditional standards might overlook." By the end of the demonstration, Colonel Jackson's skepticism had noticeably diminished. "I need to see how these specialized capabilities perform in actual deployment scenarios," he said. "But the initial results are certainly compelling." "That's been the pattern throughout implementation," Maya replied. "Initial skepticism followed by operational validation. These capabilities prove themselves in the field." As the protocol expanded throughout military operations, Maya received increasing requests to address civilian organizations facing similar challenges in evaluating human capability. Police departments, fire services, and emergency response teams were all recognizing that traditional physical standards might be overlooking specialized capabilities essential for certain operational scenarios. The Department of Homeland Security invited Maya to consult on developing a civilian adaptation of the protocol for emergency response teams. "Our current standards are primarily designed for conventional rescue operations," explained Director Sarah Chun during the initial briefing. "But we're encountering increasingly complex scenarios where those standards may not identify all the capabilities we need." Maya worked with DHS specialists to analyze recent emergency responses, identifying scenarios where traditional approaches had proven insufficient. Collapsed structures, confined spaces, and complex urban environments all presented challenges where specialized capabilities might prove decisive. "The core insight remains the same," Maya explained to the emergency response team leaders. "Different physical profiles offer different operational advantages in different contexts. The key is developing assessment methods that identify those specialized capabilities and creating operational roles that maximize their effectiveness." The civilian adaptation of the protocol required significant modifications to address the specific requirements of emergency response operations. Maya helped develop specialized training scenarios and assessment methods designed to identify unique capabilities among personnel who might not meet traditional physical standards. During a training exercise at a simulated collapsed structure, Maya observed as a 5 feet 2 inches responder successfully navigated passages that had stopped larger team members. The responder, Sarah Martinez, had previously been rejected from field operations due to height and weight requirements. "I spent 3 years trying to qualify for rescue operations," Martinez told Maya after the exercise. "I was always told I was too small, that I couldn't carry the necessary equipment or perform standard extractions." Maya recognized the familiar story her own experience echoed in another context. "But in this environment, your size becomes an operational advantage rather than a limitation." Martinez nodded, her expression reflecting both vindication and purpose. "For the first time, someone is measuring what I can do instead of how I compare to standardized requirements." The DHS implementation provided further validation of the protocol's broader applications. What had begun as a specialized military program was evolving into a comprehensive approach for evaluating human capability across multiple operational contexts. 3 years after the canyon incident that had launched the protocol, Maya received notification of selection for an unprecedented assignment. The Department of Defense was establishing a Joint Capability Assessment Command responsible for developing next-generation approaches to personnel selection, training, and deployment across all military branches. Maya was being appointed as the command's first director. The assignment came with promotion to Master Sergeant and transfer to the Pentagon, where she would work directly with the Joint Chiefs in implementing the protocol's insights throughout military operations. The position represented institutional recognition that the protocol had fundamentally changed understanding of how to evaluate and develop human capability. Major Daniels, now Lieutenant Colonel Daniels, delivered the notification personally. "This appointment goes beyond recognition of the protocol's success," he explained. "It represents acknowledgement that traditional approaches to capability assessment need systematic reconsideration. You're being asked to lead that process." Maya reviewed the assignment documentation with mixed emotions. The position offered unprecedented opportunity to implement the protocol's insights throughout military operations, potentially transforming how all service branches identified and developed specialized capabilities. This represents everything the protocol was designed to accomplish, Daniels continued. Not just creating specialized extraction techniques, but fundamentally changing how the military evaluates human capability and potential. Maya considered the broader implications. The protocol was never just about extraction operations. It was about recognizing that excellence takes many forms, and that the most valuable capabilities often emerge from profiles that don't match standardized expectations. Her new assignment would begin in 30 days following a formal transition ceremony at the Specialized Extraction and Rescue Center she had established. The ceremony would include recognition of the protocol's operational impact and formal commissioning of the expanded training facility. As Maya prepared for the transition, she spent time with each of the instructors who would continue the program's development after her departure. Many were specialists from the initial training cohorts who had demonstrated exceptional teaching abilities alongside their operational capabilities. Corporal Chun, now Sergeant Chun, had become the program's lead instructor for confined space operations. "You created opportunities that wouldn't have existed otherwise," Chun told Maya during their final training review. "Not just for me, but for everyone who didn't fit traditional expectations." Maya had developed a training succession plan that ensured the protocol's core insights would continue guiding program development. "The methodology will evolve," she explained to the instructor team. "But the fundamental principle remains. Constant recognizing that different physical profiles offer different operational advantages in different contexts." The transition ceremony was attended by military leadership from all service branches, congressional representatives involved in defense policy, and family members of service personnel saved through protocol operations. The event represented formal institutional acknowledgement that the protocol had transformed military capability development. General Matthews presided over the ceremony, presenting Maya with her new rank insignia and formal appointment to the Joint Capability Assessment Command. "Master Sergeant Santos has accomplished something rare in military history," the general noted in her remarks. "She has fundamentally changed how we understand and develop human capability." The ceremony included video testimony from service members whose lives had been saved through protocol operations. Marines, soldiers, and special operators extracted from environments where conventional approaches couldn't have reached them. Their stories provided powerful validation of the protocol's operational impact. Lieutenant Torres, now Captain Torres, spoke about the canyon incident that had first demonstrated Maya's exceptional capabilities. "Everyone present that day witnessed something we had been told was physically impossible," he recalled. "What?" we didn't realize was that we were seeing the beginning of a transformation in how the military evaluates human potential. As Maya accepted her new rank and assignment, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. From the devastating rejection based on height requirements to developing capabilities that had saved hundreds of lives and transformed military operations. The Santos Protocol isn't just about specialized extraction techniques or modified equipment designs, she noted in her remarks. It represents recognition that excellence takes many forms and that the most valuable contributions often come from those who don't match standardized expectations. She acknowledged the Marines who had been saved through protocol operations, the specialists who had performed those extractions, and the leadership who had supported the program's development despite initial institutional resistance. This transformation happened because people throughout the military were willing to reconsider assumptions about capability and recognize potential, where traditional standards weren't designed to look. Following the ceremony, Maya met privately with the family members of Marines saved through protocol operations. These encounters held profound meaning for her tangible validation that challenging traditional limitations had created capabilities with life-saving impact. Maria Rodriguez, mother of Sergeant Rodriguez from the original canyon extraction, embraced Maya with tears in her eyes. "My son would have died if you hadn't carried him out of that canyon," she said simply. "Your determination gave our family a future we almost lost." Similar stories came from dozens of families whose loved ones had been saved through capabilities developed under the protocol. Each represented validation that challenging traditional limitations had created operational advantages with profound human impact. Before departing for her Pentagon assignment, Maya visited the training course where it had all begun, the canyon environment where she had first demonstrated her exceptional extraction capabilities. The course was now part of the standard training program, with candidates learning specialized techniques for navigating restricted terrain while carrying casualties. Chief Petty Officer Ramirez, now Senior Chief Ramirez, joined her for this final visit. "Did you imagine this outcome when you carried those Marines through the canyon?" he asked as they observed candidates practicing extraction techniques. Maya watched as the candidates navigated the challenging terrain, each employing methods adapted to their specific physical capabilities. "I wasn't thinking about creating a protocol or changing institutional standards," she replied honestly. "I was simply doing what needed to be done with the capabilities I had developed." "That's often how the most significant transformations begin," Ramirez observed. "Someone does what others believe is impossible, and in doing so reveals capabilities we hadn't recognized." The Pentagon assignment represented both opportunity and challenge. Maya would be working within the institutional heart of military tradition, advocating for approaches that challenged long-established standards and expectations. The protocol's operational success provided compelling evidence, but institutional resistance remained in certain quarters. General Matthews had offered practical advice during Maya's preparation for the assignment. "You'll encounter officers who have built entire careers around traditional standards," she cautioned. "They'll perceive the protocol as threatening those standards rather than complementing them. Your challenge will be helping them recognize that identifying specialized capabilities doesn't invalidate conventional approaches, it simply ensures we don't overlook valuable potential." Maya's first official briefing to the Joint Chiefs would focus on the FIAVI protocol's operational impact across all service branches. The data was compelling hundreds of successful extractions in environments where conventional teams couldn't operate effectively, lives saved that would otherwise have been lost, capabilities developed that traditional standards had failed to identify. The evening before her departure, Maya received an unexpected visitor. Her mother, Gunnery Sergeant Olivia Santos, retired, had arrived to accompany her daughter to the Pentagon assignment. They hadn't served together since Maya's initial training, but Olivia had followed her daughter's career with immense pride. When you were rejected for combat roles because of your height, I felt I had failed you somehow," Olivia confessed as they shared dinner in Maya's quarters. "I had encouraged your dreams of military service without fully recognizing the barriers you would face." Maya shook her head firmly. "You didn't fail me, Mom. You taught me the most important lesson, that determination and preparation create capabilities beyond what others might expect. Everything I've accomplished began with what you showed me about perseverance and finding strength where others see limitation." Olivia studied her daughter with evident pride. "You've transformed that lesson into something that will change military operations for generations. The Santos Protocol will save lives long after both of us have completed our service." The following morning, Maya departed for the Pentagon with her mother beside her. As they passed through the main gate at Oceanside, they encountered a training exercise in progress. A group of candidates was practicing specialized extraction techniques, including several who clearly didn't match traditional physical profiles for combat operations. Among them was a Marine who stood barely 5'0" tall, yet was successfully completing an extraction that would have challenged personnel twice her size. Watching her navigate the course with remarkable efficiency, Maya saw the protocol's fundamental insight demonstrated once again. Different physical profiles offer different operational advantages in different contexts. The Marine completed the extraction and removed her training helmet, revealing a young face filled with determination and purpose. Seeing Maya at the observation point, she approached with evident respect. "Master Sergeant Santos, I just wanted to thank you. Before the protocol, I was told I couldn't serve in operational roles because of my size. You changed that perception." Maya recognized the Marine from the training program Private First Class Sofia Martinez, who had been rejected from multiple combat specialties before the protocol created new opportunities. "How are you finding the training, Private?" "Challenging, Master Sergeant. But for the first time, I'm being evaluated based on what I can do rather than how I compare to standardized measurements." Martinez's expression reflected both determination and gratitude. "You created a path for people like me to serve in ways we never thought possible." As they continued toward the waiting transport, Olivia commented quietly, "That's your true legacy, Maya. Not just the lives you've saved personally, but the capabilities you've revealed in others who might never have had the opportunity to demonstrate their potential." Maya considered this perspective as they boarded the transport. The protocol had begun with her individual journey to overcome arbitrary limitations, but its greatest impact came through creating opportunities for others to demonstrate capabilities that traditional standards had overlooked. At the Pentagon, Maya would face her greatest challenge, yet institutionalizing the protocol's insights throughout military operations and ensuring that its approach to capability assessment became standard practice rather than exceptional innovation. The operational data provided compelling evidence, but changing entrenched institutional perspectives would require both patience and persistence. As the transport lifted off, Maya looked back at the training facility where it had all begun. Candidates were visible on various courses, each developing specialized capabilities based on their unique physical profiles. The scene represented tangible evidence that excellence takes many forms, and that the most valuable contributions often come from those who don't match standardized expectations. "Ready for the next phase?" Olivia asked, noting her daughter's reflective expression. Maya nodded confidently. "The operational evidence is irrefutable. Different physical profiles offer different advantages in different contexts. Our responsibility is ensuring the military recognizes all the capabilities available rather than limiting potential based on standardized expectations." The transport banked toward Washington, carrying Maya toward her new assignment and the next phase of the protocol's development. What had begun as one Marine's determination to serve despite arbitrary limitations had evolved into a transformation in how the military evaluated human capability and potential. The Santos Protocol would continue saving lives and creating opportunities long after Maya completed her service. Its fundamental insight that excellence takes many forms, and that the most valuable capabilities often emerge from profiles that don't match standardized expectations would guide military operations for generations to come. As Washington appeared on the horizon, Maya reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had been deemed too small for combat roles, excluded from the service she had trained her entire life to provide. Instead, she had created a new understanding of service, a new recognition of capability, and a new path for others who might otherwise have been overlooked. She thought about Private Martinez and the other Marines who now had opportunities to serve in roles previously close to them. About the wounded service members who had been safely extracted from environments conventional teams couldn't access. About the fundamental shift in how the military evaluated human capability and potential. The Santos Protocol wasn't just about specialized extraction techniques or modified equipment designs. It represented a profound reconsideration of human capability, the recognition that excellence takes many forms, and that the most valuable contributions often come from those who don't fit conventional expectations. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.